This recent move by Donald Trump just confirms their plan to steal your Bitcoin. I know that sounds extreme, but Donald Trump and everybody has been hinting at this for quite some time. They want to find budget neutral ways to obtain more Bitcoin. And after the recent confiscation, that all but confirms their plan to not only just steal and confiscate as much Bitcoin as possible, but not use any dollars to buy Bitcoin. In the interim, they are now hiring somebody that is very, very interesting for a very powerful position that makes me believe that this is all but confirmed. Now, let's dive in to the recent confiscation and the hire from Donald Trump as his team. As you can tell, Donnie T and the US government has confiscated and now holds 326,000 Bitcoin, worth about $36 billion. But the interesting aspect of all of this is what recently was announced, where Donald Trump has selected a new Bitcoin and crypto supporter as the CFTC chair, Michael Seelig. Now, the thing about Michael is something that is very interesting, is that previously there was debate on the last nomination because both the Winklevoss twins said that there could have been some sort of conflict of interest because that person had worked in the crypto industry. But now they're bringing on a lawyer, which makes you think, why do they need a lawyer to bring in and make this policy? Is it because that they're going to be using a lawyer in order to have this new crypto oversight, as crypto is now, under the Genius Act, looked at as a commodity opposed to a security? Now, something that is very interesting about these distinctions is that we've seen confiscations of commodities before. We haven't of securities. Of course, there's that risk with having a Morgan Stanley, JP Morgan, and what have you holding your Bitcoin. But viewing all of the crypto industry as a commodity shortly after we've had some confiscations is very, very interesting. Now, with all of this, Donald Trump tapping Michael Seelig to lead this crypto oversight, where it obviously still needs to be confirmed, but this is during a pivotal time, and lawmakers are looking to put the CFTC at the helm for crypto regulation. So not only is this, he'll be very lawyer friendly with all of this. Because what do we need more in life? More lawyers, of course, right? And so, yeah, because he's a well-respected lawyer and an quote-unquote industry expert, this should be all but good. And look at who this is from. This is not from somebody in the Bitcoin space. This is the DeFi Educational Fund, right? And as I stated there earlier, Brian Quince, who was at 16Z, this was now after there were some concerns of some conflict of interest there. And they're all about the crypto policy here, right? The White House is very much so tapping this because they want to have somebody that is on their side and in the ear of everybody for quote unquote crypto policy. But as many of you guys know, having the government insight in all of this is well against the Bitcoin ethos. And I'm going to break down the Bitcoin ethos for you guys in a minute. But having this Michael Seelig really get in on there is very interesting, because this Chief Counsel of Securities and Exchanges Commission is now going for the Crypto Task Force. And he was a senior advisor for the SEC. So he's all about regulations when it comes to these various topics and aspects, which is, let's just say, very interesting with all of this, right? So Jake, a chief legal Chervinsky, I don't know, but he called Seelig the ideal candidate with deep knowledge of securities and derivatives laws. So what does that mean? That we are going to now try to financialize Bitcoin, financialize the crypto industry. And that's essentially what they want to do. And if you look at the other industries around the globe and what they have financialized, let's look at it. They financialize housing. They financialized companies, which have made, everything just more difficult. And every single aspect and industry that Wall Street has, quote unquote, financialized, it's made it harder for the average Joe to get in, the average pleb. So is that going to be a positive? Maybe for the early Bitcoin holders, but that might hurt a lot of the development here as peer-to-peer cash going forward. Now, as we continue to dive into this pick, I think that looking at it from the SEC perspective and the lawmakers who have previously been under wraps and really been looking at this emerging framework, it's really interesting, right? Because it's all within that SEC Genius and Clarity Act, which collectively aim to formalize the U.S. financial market structure rather than treat it as an adversarial novelty. So this CFTC would gain primary oversight of spot crypto trading, classifying most cryptocurrencies as commodities. So this means that a lot more volatility is going to come in, and that essentially they are going to financialize the living crap out of the Bitcoin industry. And they're doing this with the full-on intention of just taking it over. They see the volatility. This is their plan to take it over. And I'm going to keep diving into this, but before I do, please make sure you're hitting that subscribe and like button for me and get more people in here for me, folks, because it seems like there is going to be a lot to talk about here in the next few days. Because as we see these seizures, as I pointed out to you guys a little bit earlier, this record-breaking $15 billion Bitcoin seizure was from a scam. It was from the US and the UK, right? One of the largest investment fraud operations in history. But did those get in those scams? Did the scammers actually have to pay back their Bitcoin to anybody that they scammed? Were the individuals who were scammed, were they given their money back? Were they made whole? I mean, I think you guys all know the answer here. And that answer is hell no. So the US government is using all of these tactics in order to obtain as much Bitcoin as possible. Now, when the US government seemed to lose sight and lose some valuable commodities here not too long ago, what was something that they did before? Well, this Executive Order 6102, which was passed by Freddie Roosevelt, where they forbid hoarding gold coins or gold bullions and gold certificates within the United States. So they confiscated all of their gold. All of the United States members who were holding gold at some point in time, they were doing that. Now, as we're looking at this, who could potentially implement such a law or move forward in a progress in a way that would be friendly to lawmakers? Well, a former lawyer, right? So you tap in a former lawyer to get all of this. And then you have this Genius Act, which is one, prioritizing consumer protection, so they say, strengthening the U.S. dollar's reserve currency status and bolstering the national security. So remember, folks, what is that Bitcoin ethos? The Bitcoin ethos is the decentralization, having a permissionless economy, not needing any sort of bank or government. And the United States fact sheet here, this is straight from Donnie T. This is showing that this prioritization is the exact opposite of that Bitcoin ethos. So the government sees the value proposition of Bitcoin, but they also see that there is something that they really need to put a grasp on here, right? So because they see this decentralization, the permissionless economy, anyone with an internet connection can participate. These great qualities that we all know and love about the Bitcoin space, well, they're looking at this and saying, okay, We want to confiscate as much Bitcoin as possible and not hold on to it, because if we just confiscate the Bitcoin, we're not going to have to go through any budget neutral ways. Now, all of these budget neutral aspects that they have, well, instead of just buying and being a government that could essentially just print more money to buy Bitcoin theoretically, right? They're going to just continue to confiscate as much as possible. They're going to make you and I buy those Bitcoin instead of doing that, right? And I mean, the Bitcoin Strategic Reserve has already been criticized. And it's already been called a pig in lipstick, because that thing is ugly, folks. Look, I mean, I know it's not as big as those beached whales we see the crazy Australian on the internet talking about. But at the same time, if you look at the Bitcoin Strategic Reserve, it's been somewhat of a failure. Now, look, I'm still optimistic that I believe that we're going to get to a place where there's going to be some more friendly policies. But in the interim, I don't think it's wrong to criticize this Bitcoin Strategic Reserve where we've gotten. I mean, if we have a company like Strategy B, and we can get into Sailor here in a minute, if we have a company like that that has already looked at and bought more Bitcoin and has already bought the same amount of Bitcoin that the US government has seized within the same time period that Donald Trump has become elected president, well, I mean, I think you just have to look at it and say, okay, if they wanted to, they would, right? How many times have we heard women in our lives say that? All too many in my eyes. And I think that this is a big connection with what we've seen here at the world's largest, I'll call it, crypto exchange here in Coinbase. I'll get into all of that here in a minute. But first, folks, I know you don't want to sell your Bitcoin, because neither do I. Now, if you go to saltlending.com/green-candle, we've got a link down in the show notes. They will let you all borrow against your Bitcoin utilizing any one of the stable coins, or they will get you in US dollars. They're giving an exclusive offer for Green Candle podcast listeners, which will let you borrow without compromising your stack and selling. They've got some of the best rates in the industry, starting at 8.95%. They will give you a duration of 12 months, 70% LTV. Bingo, bango, bongo. You guys should be signing up ASAP like Rocky, because these deals are coming in quick. And you just start up really quickly, because government shutdowns are just getting started here. And we have Coinbase really continuing to push for these quote unquote clear rules that protect innovation in DeFi and your right to earn stablecoin rewards. Come on, guys. I mean, you know, based on what I'm saying here, all these guys, when they're saying that these stablecoin rewards that they've got going on, it's like, how are they obtaining this yield? If they aren't saying how they're doing it, they're getting the yield strictly through you. Plain and simple, folks. So if these stable coins are utilizing you to get yield, and Coinbase is utilizing you to keep getting that yield, it seems like this house of cards is going to fall at some point in time. So be very cautious. And this is why I always stand for Bitcoin and Bitcoin only. I mean, you see the amount of treasury companies that we've got coming on here, right? The Bitcoin 100. The interesting aspect of all of this, though, is you just need to buy 116 Bitcoin to get in the top 100 if you're a publicly traded company. Now, seeing this, we've seen a recent jump in these publicly traded companies up to 207 globally. And they're all going up and to the right. I mean, look at MetaPlanet jumping into number 4 and continuing to climb. But the interesting aspect is these governments, right? There's rumors of people buying, selling, all that, what say you. But this hockey stick from the US, these things only come when it comes to confiscation. So when these companies or these governments are confiscating your Bitcoin, well, it looks like it's a positive, right? Because they're putting Bitcoin on the balance sheet, but in reality, they're just exposing what we all know, that your Bitcoin is not safe from these government entities, right? And then the more expansion we see from Coinbase, the more things I get to worry about, right? Because Coinbase has come out and said that they don't want to be a bank. Coinbase has said, even though they filed for a banking license, this federal trust banking license, and they have, quote, no ambitions to be a bank. Well, why are they partnering with all of these big dogs here? Why are they doing all of this when they're getting into bed with all of these guys, right? So as we start to see countries around the world start to buy Bitcoin and continue to do that, I mean, it's going to start an acceleration phase here. Now, you guys let me know if you can hear this sound, but I thought this was an interesting clip from Eric Trump talking about how the UAE is actively buying Bitcoin. Now, let's listen in. Ooh, I'm not sharing this screen.
A lot of forfeitures,
Correct.
and they've taken a great stance saying that we're not selling any of it. You have a lot of countries around the world that are actively buying. If you go to the UAE, if you go to a lot of countries, they are actively putting that in their treasuries. And you look at the Fortune 500 companies, they are actively hoarding Bitcoin. The biggest family.
So they just said that the UAE is actively buying Bitcoin, but if you look at the US treasuries here and other treasuries around the globe, they're not disclosing how much that they are buying. They're just saying that, oh, they are buying, right? So there's 6,420 Bitcoin on the UAE treasuries. But as we know, the UAE, they are a big bag holder, folks. They've got oil money, the Saudis, all of these guys. So because they've got big money and they've got big money ready to deploy capital, they're going to be buying a whole hell of a lot more than this, right? They're going to start jumping in to what we see throughout all of these banking industries, right? So I think that as we start to see more of these companies and more of these countries start to come on, this is where we'll start to see the acceleration growth. And, usually we have Bitcoin having a very bullish October. And, I think the integration with the banks is going to be something that is super interesting here going forward, because these integrations, well, let's just say they're coming a lot quicker than I anticipated. And that they're going to be looking at banks as the leaders in these payment industries, right? So this is why I think Bitcoin and cold storage and being your own bank and avoiding these guys is the most important thing you could possibly do. This is why I preach self-custody with you guys, because these Bitcoiners are these big banks, these players, these guys with all this capital, they're coming and they're coming quick. So all of these people, right, they're not holding Bitcoin in a cold hardware wallet, but you can. Now, I think you guys should use the Trezor Safe 7. I was one of the first to get my hands on this thing. It was absolutely the best and most slick hardware wallet I've ever seen. It's the most secure and it's fully open source. It has the first ever audible secure element, which gives all the experts an opportunity to audit at any time. It's fully wireless, can be charged with a wireless charger. It connects seamlessly via Bluetooth to iPhones and other smartphones. And if somebody wants to use cable, it's also possible. It has a high-res touchscreen, and it's the first ever quantum-ready Bitcoin hardware wallet. So it's it's designed to support any of the FUD that your parents and family has. You guys could be one of the first to get your hands on it. So go ahead and order. They're available for pre-order right now. Unfortunately, I don't got a promo code for you guys, but I actually have an affiliate link for the Trezor Safe 7 specifically for you guys. So if you want this Safe 7, I'll put this in the show notes. I didn't originally, but I just got sent it to me. So go ahead and use that affiliate link there in the chat. And you guys could get your hands on one of the first pre-orders today. And then outside of that, you need to get your Bitcoin seed phrase off paper. So what you can do, you can go to cryptosteel.com/greencandle. They've got some of the best backups in the game, the cheapest options, honestly, the cheapest and the most secure options. The best part about it that I love is that they have tamper seals. So all the other hardware backups, if you've got a plate, somebody could find that and just simply swagger jack your seed phrase. CryptoSteel, on the other hand, if you use promo code GreenCandle, not only can you get 10% off, you could get a tamper seal to know if anybody had opened your seed phrase, and you don't need a hammer. You don't need anything like that. So I highly recommend getting yourself a CryptoSteel backup to go along with your Trezor Safe 7. And do it quickly because, we're seeing the Trump family really go all in on Bitcoin. I mean, this American Bitcoin company, ABTC, really just smash buying 1414 Bitcoin is honestly, I think not everything is bad per se for Bitcoin. But I do think that everything related to this is really interesting, to say the very least, right? So I think we need to watch out how we're looking at all of this, right? Because the governmental takeover of Bitcoin, well, I mean, look at the ethos here, folks. This is what AI is even saying. This is not just me, right? In a global economy without intermediaries, governments, or banks. But hey, let's jump up and down and cheer. And when you see a lot of confiscations going on, Mt. Gox, look at this. The biggest confiscation ever in the Bitcoin space. There was allegedly supposed to be repayments here this year, but they've been delayed well over 1 year. Now, why is that? Either they don't have it, or the US government magically is confiscating a lot of this Bitcoin. And they're not telling anybody that they're doing it. It's very interesting, right? So you got to ask yourself, when you guys are, buying your Bitcoin, are you securing it in the best way possible? Because if you're not, we might see some confiscations here. And the interesting aspect of what we've seen from this confiscation here recently is that this recent confiscation, it was from somebody who had it in a cold wallet, but they kept their seed phrase on Google Drive. So it's not safe just by doing that, folks. Just remember that, right? So you need to have a safe hardware backup, and you don't need to have your Bitcoin on something like a Coinbase, who obviously they're just floating around in the government, just hanging out, having a good time with them, right? So you got to ask yourself how this is going on and watching this, because the financialization of Bitcoin is coming. S&P Global just assigned a rating to Strategy and MSTR. And this is just the beginning here, folks. So make sure you guys are smoking that like Cheech and Chong and hitting that subscribe button for me, telling a friend to tell a friend, and I'll catch you guys all at the next one.